Today's lesson is Unwrapping Christmas, the stories behind the season's most iconic characters. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike.
I am Roger, and today we're going to continue to unwrap Christmas. We're talking about the stories that have to do with Christmas, the most iconic characters of Christmas. I think most people know about Santa Claus, and that might be the only image or the only character we know about Santa Claus, or at least a lot of people will probably only think of Santa Claus. But there are other ones that we have talked about so far. We talked about Santa Claus, and we talked about Mrs. Claus, his wife, although we don't really know what her name exactly is. There's no consensus on that. It could be Martha, Mary, Anna, Carol, Holly, or whatever. It could be anything. Who knows? You probably can call her whatever you want. But these are the two characters we've introduced so far, but there are others.
Exactly right. Now, Santa, of course, is the man in charge. His wife is there backing him up all the way. But who does a lot of the work at the North Pole? We're going to get to that hardworking gang. And we're also going to get to the people who allow Santa, not the people, the characters who allow Santa to get all of those toys to all of the happy children on Christmas Eve. Without any of these people, the whole operation would fall apart and we would just basically have to skip from Thanksgiving to Chinese New Year, and that would be no fun now, would it? So let's get into Santa's crew, his hardworking team up there at the North Pole and other places, and we'll find out all about them coming up next.
Santa's elves. Much like Santa's, the origins of the Christmas elves lie in various European myths. Specifically, they appear to be derived from Scottish brownies and the Hudefolk, hidden people of Norse mythology. The elves' modern image emerged in the 1850s and portrays them as Santa's hardworking little helpers. They're responsible for making toys, tending to Santa's reindeer, and preparing for Santa's Christmas Eve journey. True to their folkloric roots, they're also known for mischief, often playing tricks on Santa.
大家好，第一部分介绍动词 derive， 它的意思是使源自于、使来自于或是获得。例如 The song's popularity derives mainly from its beautiful melody. 这首歌受到欢迎主要源自于其优美的旋律。或者Moreno derives a lot of happiness from helping others who are in need. Moreno 从帮助有需要的人中获得许多快乐。接下来介绍片语 play a trick on somebody 或是 play a joke on somebody， 意思是对某人恶作剧或是捉弄某人。举个例子 Todd likes to play tricks on the other kids in his class. Todd 喜欢捉弄他班上的其他小朋友。又或者说Scott played a joke on his coworker by hiding her phone under the desk. Scott 恶作剧将同事的手机藏在桌子底下。
Okay, first of all, let's talk about Santa's elves. That's kind of hard to say. Elves. It's got the V and the Z sound together, so good luck with that. But we're talking about the elves here at the North Pole. They're Santa's helpers. And much like Santa's, the origins of the Christmas elves lie in various European myths. So yes, like Santa Claus's origins, the elves have similar origins. They come from various European myths. Now, a myth is a story that you can't prove is true or not. It's kind of like a folk tale or whatever. Most people probably think that these myths are not true, but you never know. Maybe they are. Who knows? But in any case, these are old stories from Europe. And of course, they were talking about elves, and eventually they became Santa's helpers.
That is absolutely right. So let's find out who these helpers are and exactly what they do for Santa. It says they're derived from Scottish brownies and the Hudefolk of Norse mythology. So that is specifically the European myths that the idea of these Christmas elves are drawn from. Two myths from similar parts of Europe, but still not the same. Scottish brownies and Norse mythology. That's where the elves are derived from. If something is derived from a certain thing or a certain place, it basically comes from that place. You get it from that place. You can derive assurance from a pat on the back or a kind word from someone. And you can derive great pleasure from doing things that you enjoy, spending time with loved ones, hiking in nature, whatever makes makes you happy. You get your happiness from that. And we can also talk about, in cultural ways, music deriving from certain styles or certain parts of the world, stories deriving from certain legends or fairy tales or things like that. They change, of course. They're adapted. They're added to, but that is their source. That is where they come from. So the Scottish brownies are kind of like fairies or elves or something like that. Again, mythical sort of fairy tale creatures. And also the Hudafolk of Norse mythology. That is translated there as the hidden people of Norse mythology. That sounds a little bit scarier, but hopefully they're friendly hidden people. But little characters who might appear suddenly and sort of mess with people, change fate, do things that might occur in stories and cause trouble in normal people's lives. These naughty little characters, elves or brownies or Hudafolk. It says the elves' modern image emerged in the 1850s and portrays them as Santa's hard-working little helpers. So, yes, we have stories with elves, I should say, going back hundreds of years, but the modern idea of the Christmas elf, this sort of skilled workman who helped Santa to make toys and that modern image emerged or came out, it appeared in the 1850s, and it portrays them, or it shows them, it depicts them, to use a word from earlier, as Santa's hard-working little helpers. So that's the kind of idea we still have today, and in fact, that idea goes back even further than the traditional image of Santa Claus that we know.
Right, so again, this is the modern image that we have of elves nowadays. They came out in the 1850s, and they were derived from Scotland and other things. I did want to say that brownies are not referring to the little brown cakes that we eat that have frosting on them. In this particular case, they're like elves who can haunt houses. And when I was a kid, I remember my mother saying, hey, you got to watch out for Billy the Brownie because he comes down from the North Pole before Christmas and he wants to make sure that you're a good kid. And if he sees you doing something bad, then Santa Claus will probably bring you some coal or a bag of rocks. But in this particular case, we've got the elves' modern image, and it came out or emerged in the 1850s, and they are the little helpers of Santa Claus, and they are hard-working. They are not slackers. They don't try to be lazy on the job. They're very hard-working. They're very responsible, and they're responsible for making toys, tending to Santa's reindeer, and preparing for Santa's Christmas Eve journey. So they have various responsibilities here. First of all, they need to make toys. Those toys, of course, will be distributed to children all over the world on Christmas Eve. They are also responsible for tending to Santa's reindeer. Now, if you tend to, in this particular case, it just means you take care of the reindeer. You feed them, you clean them, you make sure they're all right. And they also need to prepare for Santa's Christmas Eve journey. They need to get the sleigh all ready to polish it up, and they need to probably clean and press Santa's suit so he looks his best. Yes, these are their responsibilities.
Well, they have many skills, don't they? I mean, not only are they carving old-style toys out of wood, they're probably manufacturing PlayStations using modern computer technology, tending to the reindeer, so amazing animal skills as well. And also, I guess they're very good with a GPS because Santa never gets lost. It says, true to their folkloric roots, they're also known for mischief, often playing tricks on Santa. Well, hopefully they limit those tricks on Christmas Day because Santa's got a lot of work. They don't want to trick him into flying to Pluto to deliver his toys there. But true to their folkloric roots, here we're using sort of the adjective form here of folklore, their roots in folklore. Back in the old days, before they were Christmas elves, as brownies, as Hudafolk, or as just elves in many myths, they were known to be quite naughty. As I said earlier, they would kind of mess with people a little bit, confuse them, bring trouble into their life, have them maybe fall in love with the wrong person in the village or something like that. They would hide your tools. If you're a workman and you come to your workshop in the morning and your hammer is missing, you might say, oh, those elves have been in here and they've been kind of messing with me, hiding things, causing trouble, playing practical jokes and tricks and things like that. And Santa, even though he's the king of Christmas, he is no exception. He is a victim of these elves' little tricks and pranks just as much as anyone else. So that is one of the things that's sort of carried through from their older folkloric traditions, from their older myth and legend traditions. They're still naughty little elves, even if they are very productive and helpful to our friend Santa Claus. All right, let's turn from his elvish helpers to his reindeer helpers. We're going to find out all about that wonderful gang that helped to pull Santa around the sky on Christmas Eve.
Santa's reindeer. While undoubtedly the most famous reindeer, Rudolph was actually the last to join Santa's team. The original 8 reindeer were introduced in the 1823 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas. These reindeer possess extraordinary flight abilities, but their real-world counterparts are impressive in their own right, capable of running at 48 kilometers per hour. Also, real male reindeer lose their antlers during winter, which leads some to believe that Santa's reindeer, including Rudolph, are all girls.
第二部分看到副词 undoubtedly 表示无疑的或是毫无疑问的，例如 Ella was undoubtedly one of the greatest singers of all time. Ella 无疑是有史以来最伟大的歌手之一。接着看到动词 possess， 它的意思是拥有或是具有，例如 My mom possesses a very kind heart. 我的妈妈拥有一颗非常仁慈的心。也可以说 My dream is to possess lots of money. 我的梦想是拥有很多钱。再来介绍形容词 extraordinary， 表示非凡的、出色的或是令人惊奇的。可以说 Dr. Collins made an extraordinary discovery in the field of medicine. Collins 博士取得了在医学领域上的非凡发现。又或者说The view from the top of the mountain was truly extraordinary. 这座山顶上的视野真的很令人惊奇。下一个介绍片语 in one's own right， 它的意思是依靠自己的能力。举个例子 Though Mina's parents are both in the movie industry, she's a famous actor in her own right. 虽然 Mina 的父母都在电影产业工作，但她靠自己的努力成为知名演员。或是 Bill's mother is a great chef in her own right. Bill 的母亲本身就是个好厨师。
Okay, now it's time for us to talk about Santa's reindeer. That's another figure that we might think about when we think about Christmas. Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, the elves. And now we have the reindeer, which are a kind of deer from northern Europe there, and these are his reindeer. And while undoubtedly the most famous reindeer, Rudolph, was actually the last to join Santa's team. So indeed, when you hear the word reindeer, the first thing that goes through your mind is probably the Christmas carol, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. A shiny nose. And in this particular case, there are other reindeer who came before him. There were 8 other reindeer in the team. And yes, he was the most famous reindeer, but he was the last to join the team. And the original 8 reindeer were introduced in the 1823 poem A Visit from St. Nicholas. I think that's the poem that begins, 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse, and it goes on and on. It's actually kind of fun to read because it rhymes in a lot of places. And yes, the original 8 reindeer were introduced in that poem, and the 8 reindeer, I think, were Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen
yep.
and then Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. So those were the original 8 reindeer. Of course, that's how the song begins, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You know Dasher and Dancer. But anyway, Rudolph was the last one to join the crew or the team.
That's right. But of course, now the most famous one because of his famous red nose. Now, these reindeer, whether it's the original 8 or the new 9, these reindeer possess extraordinary flight abilities, but their real-world counterparts are impressive in their own right, capable of running at 48 kilometers per hour. Now, yeah, obviously the reindeer from the Santa story are mythical, sort of legendary creatures not based on actual scientific reality. They can fly. Reindeer, of course, are a deer-like animal, and they possess wonderful abilities, but not extraordinary flight abilities. Reindeer in the real world, of course, cannot fly. To possess something is to have or to own something, to have it as your own, like you might possess a natural talent for music or sports or cooking or art or something like that. You also possess the things you own. Those are your possessions. You keep many of your possessions at home because you want to keep them or possess them and not have them stolen away from you. So if you possess something extraordinary, you have or you own something incredible, something amazing, something that is not usually found in in the world. Hopefully it's something wonderful. You might possess an extraordinary ability to make friends or something. You're a real people person, you might say. So something is extraordinary, it's just amazing or incredible or definitely worth noting. But their real world counterparts, or sort of the colleagues, the other versions of these reindeers that we meet in the real world, real reindeers, not storybook reindeers that live and work with Santa Claus at the North Pole, they are still impressive in their own right, on their own. If you sort of take away the myths and the stories about flying reindeers, real reindeers, the ones we actually find on the planet, are impressive or amazing in their own right, on their own, standalone. Even a normal reindeer is pretty incredible. Here's an example. Capable of running at 48 kilometers per hour. They're pretty fast animals. I don't think they could maybe fly that fast, or they fly, hopefully in the stories they're flying even faster, but still being able to run at 48 kilometers per hour and maybe even run that fast in snow is definitely impressive.
Right. I used to think that the deer probably would have to fly very fast in order to keep the sleigh level, flying through the air, because the sleigh is actually pretty heavy, and if they go too slow through the air, the sleigh would probably fall down because it's only supported by a few ropes there. So unless they have some kind of board sticking back, I don't know, but yeah, that used to bother me.
The aerodynamics of the sleigh.
Yeah, it used to bother me when I was a kid. How is that going to work? I thought that sleigh would be rather heavy, especially pulled by those deer, but they actually can run pretty fast on land. Also, real male reindeer lose their antlers during winter, which leads some to believe that Santa's reindeer, including Rudolph, are all girls. I'd never heard that before, but I guess this is true. Male reindeer will lose their antlers during the winter. An antler, of course, are those horns that stick out of a deer or a moose or whatever. They're called antlers if they kind of go in different directions and they're not really straight. If they're straight and pointed, those would be horns, but if they're kind of big like a tree or something, those would be antlers.
Exactly right. So that's something to think about. Now, I guess we're going to have to look at those names a little more carefully and definitely give these lady deers all the credit that they should get for being Santa's great team of flying reindeers, including Rudolph. All right, that's all the time we have, but there's a little bit to read before we sign off. So let's listen to that, and then we'll be back.
Now that Christmas has arrived, let's welcome these familiar friends once again. They're more than just children's story characters. They're vital to the wonder that makes this season special.
第三部分看到形容词 vital 表示必不可少的或是极其重要的，可以说 A healthy diet is vital for your body. 健康的饮食对你的身体极为重要。最后一个例子 Having sufficient budget is vital to the plan's success. 有足够的预算对这项计划的成功至关重要。
Okay, we're going to wrap things up now. In the final paragraph, it says, Now that Christmas has arrived, now that Christmas is here, let's welcome these familiar friends once again. They're more than just children's story characters. They're vital to the wonder that makes this season special. Of course, the Christmas season is with us. Actually, yesterday was Christmas, but this is still the Christmas season until New Year's, and then we're going to wait for Chinese New Year to come. But in this particular case, Christmas has arrived. It's here. The season is here. So yes, let's talk about these familiar friends, these figures from Christmas, and let's look up their stories and talk about them with each other over a cup of coffee or whatever. And they're more than just children's story characters. Adults love these things too, especially during Christmas time. Lots of people in coffee shops and convenience stores will wear the Santa Claus cap to get into the spirit of Christmas. So all of these characters are vital to the wonder of Christmas. If something's vital, it's very important. We could not have Christmas without Santa Claus, Mrs. Claus, the reindeer, the elves, and other characters.
Absolutely. And of course, it's part of Christmas to sort of know the characters, but also enhances your enjoyment of Christmas and your understanding of it to know a little bit about their history and about where they came from and how their characters and depictions of them have changed over time. All right, we're going to have our discussion starter question coming up next, but first let's go over to Hanny.
各 各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分是关于圣诞老公公的精灵，有一句写到他们负责制造玩具，照顾圣诞老公公的驯鹿……好，那文中他用到They are responsible for making toys 来表达他们负责制造玩具。 Be responsible for 可以表达负责什么，掌管什么，对什么负有全责。那在这里它不带有负面语义。我们也顺便补充一下 be responsible for 的其他两种意思。那第一个，它可以表达对什么负有责任，像是对意外啊、过错、罪行等等负有责任，这时候是带有负面语义，像是 The bus driver was responsible for the accident 那位公车司机要对这起意外事故负责。第二个，它可以表达造成、导致，那可以用来表达是什么什么的原因，像 A lightning strike was responsible for the fire雷击是造成那场火灾的原因。好，另外课文句子里面还有用到 tend to 来表达照顾。这个动词 tend 它本身就有照顾、照管的意思，后面接名词。那么 tend 也可以当不及物用，这时候常常就会用 tend to somebody 或是 tend to something 去表达照顾、照料某人或某事物。像 Mary loves to spend time tending to her garden Mary 喜欢花时间照顾她的花园。好，那补充一下，如果是 tend to 加原形动词，则是表达往往会怎么样，经常会怎么样，用来表达经常发生的动作或是习惯。好，接着读到课文第二部分，它是关于圣诞老公公的驯鹿。它有写到 While undoubtedly the most famous reindeer, Rudolph was actually…… 尽管鲁道夫无疑是最有名的驯鹿，但他其实怎么样。那我们看到这个句子前半部，它其实用到了分词构句。它原本是由这个 While Rudolph was undoubtedly the most famous reindeer 把它简化而来的。While 在这边表示虽然尽管。那我们看到前后子句因为主词相同，都是在讲 Rudolph， 所以呢就把副词子句这个 while 后方的主词省略了，然后把 be 动词 was 改成 being 还可以进一步省略，那就变成了课文的 While undoubtedly the most famous reindeer。 好，那我们也来造个例句会更清楚。 While it is small, the apartment is very cozy。那间公寓虽然小，但非常温馨舒适。那前半句这个句子里的 it 是指 the apartment， 所以前后主词是相同的，我们就可以把这个副词子句里面重复的主词 it 省略，动词部分 is 改成现在分词 being， 那就形成了分词构句。这个 being 还可以省略嘛，所以呢 while it is small 就可以简化成 while small， 那整个句子就变成 while small The apartment is very cozy。 好，那以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Myth. The myth of Pandora's box explains the origin of human misery. Derive. The company derives most of its income from online sales. Emerge. It took time for the truth to emerge from the conflicting reports. Undoubtedly. Francesca is undoubtedly the most talented player on the team. Possess. The old house possesses a unique charm that attracts many visitors. Extraordinary. Zach's performance in the play was truly extraordinary. Vital. It is vital that we complete the project before the deadline.
Discussion starter starts now.
Okay, it's our discussion starter for today. And the question is, which of the Christmas characters discussed in the article is your favorite and why?
My favorite Christmas characters are the reindeer because I think it's pretty amazing that these animals can pull Santa's sleigh around. They do it very, very quickly, right? He has to deliver gifts to everyone on Earth and especially to all the good little boys and girls in one night. And considering it takes about 18 hours to fly from London to Australia, for him to be able to do the whole world in 24 hours, I think those reindeers deserve a big round of applause and a big thanks from all of us.
They are pretty cool. Hopefully they're taken care of during the other times of the year, but My favorite Christmas character is actually Mrs. Claus. I say this because when I watched an old TV special called Santa Claus is Coming to Town, they depicted Mrs. Claus when she was very young, and she was a redhead, and I just love redheads.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger.
See you next time.